Welcome and thank you for joining us for this edition of the Youth Intervention Journal. I'm your host, Ben Hale. I'm joined in this first segment by Paul Manier from Minnesota YIPA. And Paul, we're going to talk today about a survey that came out that gives us some facts and figures behind the idea of youth intervention and shows us that it really works. What are some of the things that you were able to pull out of this survey and are really things that you can put behind the work that you're doing?
Right. Well, just to give you a little overview, first of all, we at the Youth Intervention Programs Association want to get beyond anecdotal stories about youth. It's important to tell their stories. It's important that people feel good about the work they do. We know it's kind of morally and socially the right thing to do, but we also want to make sure that our programs work and that they are reducing the amount of problems that our youth are having and having good outcomes. So in general, the study was very positive. It not only shows that youth are making gains, but we got scientific facts now that show that the work that our people are doing throughout the state is really having an impact on kids.
And this survey really dug deep, it looks like, into, it conducted surveys with thousands of participants in, it says, over 40 different programs. So this wasn't just, looking at one thing in one area.
One of the difficulties with youth intervention is there's such a wide variety of programs that do youth intervention work. It ranges from restorative justice to mentoring to park and recs departments to mental health. And to get a cross-section of the kind of work they do is really difficult. But you're right. There was they used the Minnesota Student Survey, which is done every 3 years in the state of Minnesota, and they mirrored that. And so they asked similar questions to that. So they would have a norm reference group. So the youth that are taking it that are in the youth intervention programs can then be referenced against the typical population, and that's how they get the results. And they did have about just about 1,000 pre and post surveys that they took. So the students before they entered the program and the students after they entered the program. And like you said, across 40 different programs. So I think there's a lot of statistical significance here that really hit home that these kind of programs do work and they save money.
Some of the things that the survey showed was that when these youth are in a youth intervention program, they're doing better in school, their skills are increasing, and their social attitudes even are growing and getting better. Those have to be good things for you guys to see in the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. When our youth are skilled at anger management, interpersonal relationships, well-behaved in school so that they can be learning, all those kinds of things have long-term impact on our communities and long-term impact on the youth. And so it is very promising to see those kinds of things. And a little bit, about the youth that are in these programs. Some of the things that are really significant that came out, just who are the population that we serve. About half of them are eligible for free and reduced lunch. So it's a lower socioeconomic class. These are the people that generally don't have access to a lot of environmental things that a lot of our youth do. And about 1/3 of these kids that are in these youth intervention programs live in a single family household. They don't live in a dual family environment with a mom and a dad, or foster parents with two parents kind of helping nurture them along. So these truly are kids that need our help. And what's interesting, so we know that there's kids out there that need it. We know there's a lot more kids that should benefit from youth intervention but are not getting it. And now we know it works, so it's really significant. So these skills that people are able to introduce into these youth, and so like some of them from the Ain Dah Yung Center that you'll hear today, these are staff that are very skilled at building relationships with these youth, and it really works.
This survey didn't specifically address it, but one of the things we've talked before too is the work that you're able to do through intervention, which we now have even more data that's showing it works, is done at such a lower cost than any alternative.
Right. On average, it costs the programs that we kind of are involved with our association. It's the average of about $2,000 a year to put a youth through a program, some sort of youth intervention program. Whereas if we go the traditional route, the route that we've been going, sending them to court, detaining them, putting them in residential treatment, those are way more expensive. For example, it costs like about $35,000 a year for a youth to be in a residential treatment center, and it costs about $86,000 a year to incarcerate a youth. And just to put a youth through a court system can sometimes cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. So it's just really a wise investment to engage in these youth intervention programs. One of the other facts that we, since we're talking about incarceration and things, 90% of the youth that are involved in a youth intervention program do not have further involvement with police or the justice system when they're in the program. So if we keep these kids in programs, we know that our communities are safer because 90% of them are not having further involvement. And so, you know, there's long-term savings and there's short-term savings, and I can tell you we save a lot of money by putting kids, these youth that are kind of at risk or looking for direction in life, and pairing them with a caring adult and building a meaningful relationship. We all win. There's no doubt about it.
And it looks like from the survey that the attitude towards school turns more positive, and the attitude and the use of chemical dependency definitely drops when kids are in these programs. It's something else that you can pull out of this survey.
Without a doubt. And the other thing, too, is that a lot of the times these kids at the pre-surveys were saying they felt angry and irritable a lot of times. And when they got done, they were saying they're much less irritable, much more able to focus on long-term decisions versus impulsive kind of decisions. So all those things really impact home life, community life, our justice system, our educational system, and just society in general. So it is really positive to see these kind of results. And then the other thing too, Ben, we've talked about in other programs is the return on investment. You know, we conducted and commissioned the first ever social return on investment so we could figure out what economically the return was. And for every youth in this program that you invest $1 in, the return on investment is nearly $5. So it's really a wise investment too, financially speaking.
Now you have this survey, you have more positive results behind you. What are you going to do with this? What are you going to, where are you going to take these facts and figures from here now?
Well, we're going to scream it from the mountaintops, and we are trying to get it well known. Our goal is to have youth intervention as well understood and as well funded as early childhood education is, because we know that early childhood education is a critical investment in youth, and we know the return on investment for that. And that's great. We should be doing that, and nobody's arguing against that. But to say then our investment and our kind of interest in youth at that point just is strictly educational is a mistake. There's a continuum of care that goes along. If we can take these youth that are struggling somewhere in the school age and get them to be productive citizens versus being, you know, people that when they get older are consumers of our services versus, you know, producers, we save a ton of money. So our goal is to get youth intervention very well known. It should be a household kind of understanding, and people should be able to sit around and understand what youth intervention is. And we are very far away from that. And so that's why we appreciate the opportunity, Ben, to do a show like this, because it is our mission. We believe so strongly in this whole youth intervention, and we believe so strongly in the work that you're going to introduce our audience to a few people today. The work that they do, these are people that do phenomenal things for our community day in and day out, and we need to tell their story. And when you hear Blue's story and you hear a little bit about what his life is like, it's just a classic example of what happens day after day after day. One final thing, you know, the Newtown tragedy that we had, you know, there's a lot of talk about identifying these kids and getting them the help they need. I promise you, our youth intervention workers across the state of Minnesota know who those kids are. And some of those kids aren't getting the services that they need. So youth intervention is really something that needs to be part of the conversation of how do we go forward and how do we make our community safer and how do we help our youth be successful adults.
Thank you. And now that we have that data behind it and show just one more time how much it works, we're going to do just that after this commercial break and talk to a local organization and learn more about the work that they are doing. So stay with us here on the Youth Intervention Journal.
life's this hard, graduating can be even harder. But you can help Jose and the students in your community make it through by visiting boostup.org.
Join Ben Hale and Danica Peterson every Friday on North Metro TV News.
Welcome back to the Youth Intervention Journal here on North Metro TV. Now I'm glad to be joined by Jason Smith, who is the Residential Director at the Ain Dah Yung Center. And Jason, I just want to kind of start with, kind of give us an overview on the work that you and your colleagues are doing.
Okay, thank you for having us here today. This is a great opportunity. And first I want to say that this year is we're celebrating our 30th anniversary this year. The shelter piece of Ain Dah Yung Center and Ain Dah Yung Center itself began in 1983. There was a red schoolhouse in St. Paul that catered to Native American youth for educational purposes, a school. And they noticed that there was absenteeism, there was a lot of tardiness. It was a lot of the youth were not getting to school and benefiting from a good education at a young age. So they did some research and found out that these youth were mostly homeless. They didn't have a steady place to stay. They were not having the transportation to get to school. So out of that, a grant was written, and a proposal for a grant was written, and the grant was received to open a shelter. So that's how Ain Dah Yung Center started in 1983, as just a shelter to cater to Native American youth who were struggling to have a stable place to live. Since then, we've grown into a full social service agency that has 5 key components, I guess, is how we try to serve our Native community in St. Paul, Minneapolis metro area. The first one is more prevention services. That's Nini Johnny Sock. And again, later in the show today, Angela will be able to talk more about those programs. But and Oyate Nawajin is for at-risk families and youth who are struggling with at-risk those risk factors that will eventually lead into maybe some homelessness or some other issues that need support. And then the housing programs that I personally oversee are the Street Outreach Program, the Emergency Shelter, and the Transitional Living Program. So it's kind of the whole continuum of homeless youth care. In what we have literally outreach workers that go to the streets and find the youth living on the streets or struggling to have a stable, consistent place to live. And they can hook them up with resources in the area. Maybe possibly one of our youth workers, our street outreach workers, will hook them up to our shelter. So we serve 5 to 17-year-old youth in St. Paul, and from the Midwest, we get county placements and tribal placements from all over the Midwest. And we also take in self-referrals of homeless youth and teenagers. If they are successful in that shelter and it fits well, they can transition into our transitional living program, which is the Beverly A. Benjamin Youth Lodge, is our name for ours. Named after a woman that was a youth worker at this youth lodge who lost her life to cancer years ago. And her sister, Barbara, is on our board of directors, so it's really kind of a neat community and family feel. So the Youth Lodge is our transitional living program for 16 to 21-year-olds who are working on independent living skills, budgeting, how to read a lease, how to talk to your landlord, and to gain those skills to move into their own independent living. So the whole continuum or spectrum of homeless youth services, from street outreach to shelter to transitional living program, are where the homeless youth kind of programs that I oversee. But our overall mission for Ain Dah Yung Center is to provide a healing place for American Indian youth and families to thrive in safety and wholeness. And that reaches into many different aspects of the family dynamics, the community dynamics in the Native American community in this area. We feel that this area is a leader in the nation for Native American family and youth services, and Ain Dah Yung Center is proud to be a big part of that as well. So within those 5 components of the Ain Dah Yung Center is kind of an overview of the whole center.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about how you bring that traditional American Indian culture into what you're doing and kind of supports the outreach and all the different types of programs that you're running through your center.
Oh, sure. Well, we know that Native children and families that receive services that are interlaced within our culture, their chances of success increase dramatically. And true healing and building upon the strengths of our youth comes from allowing them to embrace their cultural ways and to have positive Native cultural experiences. That is known, and that's where our base comes from to be integrated into our community. We just hosted and provided a Cherish the Children powwow at Central High School in St. Paul just a couple weekends ago, and that's something we give back to the community. So the community gets together and can share different traditional ways and celebrate each other. Also, having staff in the housing programs, I know we have around 80 to 85% staff of Native American background, and that is great for youth to experience a relationship with an adult that's positive, healthy, mentoring, and with a Native focus. We serve any youth from any background, and we welcome everyone, and that's part of our traditions as well. But we have focused Native traditional teaching-based programs. Angela, in a little bit, will talk a little more about how to use cultural teachings to prevent tobacco use in a non-traditional way. Teaching the difference between recreational tobacco use and traditional tobacco use, and preventing recreational tobacco use and chemical dependency and all those other unhealthy living styles. And we integrate as much as we can drum, dance, a lot of different traditional ways, and invite other community members in, and we go to other places in the community, and even the greater community too, not even the Native community, but to be open to all people is very important as well.
Now, your work specifically, what has been some of the impacts that you've seen on the lives of individual members of our community? Oh, wow. In the social service work, you get highs and really high highs and really low lows. It can be very rewarding, but it can be very challenging at times. And I think it attracts fantastic people to this work. And I have many, many stories both ways. But one I guess I'd share today is a youth that a youth's mother personally contacted one of our direct care staff at her shelter and just said, your mentoring really changed my son's life. He then went into technical college and is trying to get some experience and education to come back and work in a place like Ain Dah Yung Center. So he came back physically, knocked on the door and came back and wanted to thank everyone. So the letters, the talks from the parents, where we have to kind of safe harbor their youth in maybe a child protection situation, we get a lot of feedback that's a positive, peaceful, and all-inclusive place for youth to be. All right. Well, Jason, thanks for coming in today and kind of sharing with us about your work and the work of the Ain Dah Yung Center. And we're not done. We're going to continue our conversations about the work that they're doing after we take this short break here on the Youth Intervention Journal.
A boy born in Joplin, Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him winning both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year? 1 in 195 million. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 88. I'm Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Welcome back to the Youth Intervention Journal. We're going to continue our discussion about the work at the Ain Dah Yung Center. And now we're joined by Angela Gauthier, who is the Family and Children's Director, as well as BlueShadow Spearman Jones, who has been helped and has worked with the center. And we're going to hear more about Blue's story in just a minute. But Angela, I just want to kind of hear about some of the work that you're doing specifically, and just tell us about the work you're doing, why you find it rewarding.
Well, I oversee our children's and family services, so any of our services at Ain Dah Yung Center provides that aren't residential services kind of fall in that category. So we work with families that have a lot of risk factors. We help them with housing and family stabilization. We do some children's mental health work with Ramsey County. And then our youth prevention program, which is Nini Johnny Sug, is a big portion of the children's and family services. So Nini Janisag focuses on youth between the ages typically of 10 to 17. We work really closely with some of the local schools in St. Paul to provide some after-school programming and services within the school. And we really work on prevention in major risk factor areas. So the use of commercial tobacco, chemical dependency, and kind of general health and well-being, violence prevention, things like that. The big thing that makes our prevention program different than a lot of others is that we work on all those risk factors through bringing the youth back to their culture and to their community. So we'll do chemical dependency prevention through a traditional drum group that we hold once a week. We do tobacco prevention through the teachings about the uses of traditional tobacco, how that was harvested, how to use traditional tobacco to prevent then the use of commercial tobacco. So those are the ways, is to make those healthy connections with the communities, have them connect with elders, figure out how to kind of access their traditional healing resources within their community. The idea is to give the youth a good enough foundation that they'll always have these ways to come back to and know how to access those things and who to contact and how to use it if things are happening later. So some of the things we'll do is bring youth to sweat lodge ceremonies, and the drum group will teach all of the songs that they'll need for that. They understand how to use tobacco in that context. So that's the way that we kind of connect everyone together. The other thing is we don't limit the amount of time that the programming is available. So if you come in and you're 10, you may still be involved in our program in some way when you're 17. The only thing that we ask of the youth is, if they want to stay that long, is that they just increase their leadership responsibilities with us as they stay in our programming. So they may become peer educators and help facilitate groups. We offer a lot of volunteer experiences. So we bring them to our events like the Cherish the Children powwow that Jason referred to, and they'll help volunteer at that event, or our drum group will perform. And so we really want to give them the cultural foundation as well as leadership responsibilities when they're in our program.
And it sounds like you're really, with that focus on the longer they stay in the program, the more responsibilities and leadership, it kind of sounds like you're really trying to, set them up for that future success and break that cycle of poverty, so they don't fall back into it after they are finished with the program. Yeah,
exactly. The youth that have the opportunity to do like the peer mentorship, we structure it so they get the job responsibility, so that we're able to give them a reference, if they're applying for work, that they understand, like, I have to show up on time and these are my responsibilities. And so giving them all of that foundation, and also working with really closely with the schools, it gives us the opportunity to help them in the education system to ensure that they're making their way towards graduation, they can be successful in that context.
Great. Blue, we just want to hear your story, hear what brought you to the Ain Dah Yung Center and kind of the process that you've gone through since you've been working with them.
Well, I was, when I first started being a part of Ain Dah Yung, it was because I had recently came up from Omaha, Nebraska, where my mom lived, and that was not a stable or welcoming environment. And I was staying with some friends from high school from when I used to live in Minnesota. And then after that, it was a situation that it was done all in good faith and love, but it just wasn't working out. So I ended up coming to the Beverly A. Benjamin Youth Lodge. And at the time, I really didn't, I was a very angry, very impulsive person. I really didn't know much about my own specific culture. And at the time, I was just starting to care. But after a while, being involved with Nini Janisag and a bunch of the, I don't know, like we would go on these outings to do different things. And I started to become more and more involved, because for me, it wasn't just the cultural aspect, but it was just like being around other Native people my own age and just gaining a connection. And it was like, I don't know, like it was kind of like brotherhood, like we talked, like she was talking about drum group, and like that was like kind of where I finally learned to bond with other people and like be able to grow as a person. taking leadership positions. Then also, like in Nini Johnny Sog itself, I would go out of my way, even out of my other responsibilities in life, just to make sure that I was always there, always involved. I didn't really have like a good support group or close friends, so it kind of provided me with that. It kind of gave me this willingness to step outside of myself and be a part of a bigger community.
Right. How do you think the programs at the Ain Dah Yung Center have changed you, and maybe how have they set you up for more success as you continue to get older and go into your future life?
Well, I will say, like, especially for the Beverly A. Benjamin Youth Lodge, I just call it the Youth Lodge. Like when you're homeless, you think about, like, you automatically become a more responsible person just because you have to think about, okay, I have to make these decisions which are going to impact whether or not I'm going to be able to eat, whether or not I'm going to have a safe place to sleep. But when you get into a program like that, it's just, it removes the need for you to think of things that are present. And then, like, because, like, everybody tells you, oh, you have to graduate high school, oh, you have to graduate college, but then it's not until, like, I got into those programs that those things became, like, more real, like more tangible, like things I could actually pursue, instead of like, oh, I don't have anything to eat, I have $3 and I have to be at work at like 5 o'clock this evening, what am I going to do? It like took away those kind of stressors, so I could actually say, okay, well, I'm actually going to finish high school, and then I'll think about, okay, which college am I, then like thinking about which college I'm going to go to became like a priority for the first time since I was a kid. Like, I never thought I was actually going to get there. Like, I wanted to, but it wasn't really something that I thought I would actually make. But and then I can definitely say, like, Mini Johnny Sog it kind of made me a leader, because before then I was kind of a shy person. I really didn't talk to people, I really didn't want to stand out or try to. But over time, especially with Travis, the head of drum group, and one of my personal mentors, he kind of like gave me those pushes that put me out front. Whenever there was a spirit dish that needed to be passed around during dinner, he would always like make me say the prayer. He would always put me in, like when we did Wilder Camp, a camp that was for youth that Nini Johnny Sog was a part of. He made me in charge of the dorms that the boys slept in, made sure that I kept the noise down, that everybody got to bed on time, got up in the morning, made sure that I kept the fire going, and just different things like that just like kind of made me see, like, okay, not only am I being put in these leadership positions, but also like, oh, I can actually do these leadership things and can excel at them, which is something I try to do, but before then it was just like it didn't always work out the way I wanted it.
Right. Well, that's just a great story of the success of youth intervention programs, and thank you for sharing your story. I wish we had more time to hear more from both of you, but unfortunately we're out of time. But it really was just a great way to end our time together today, to hear just one more success story. As we know, there are thousands of success stories through the Ain Dah Yung Center and through youth intervention programs across the state. So thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of you for watching this episode of the Youth Intervention Journal here on North Metro TV. I've been your host, Ben Hale, and we'll see you next time.